Welcome. Tonight we descend through unmarked hallways, sealed blast doors, and forgotten sub-level prisons beneath classified government sites, places built not to hold prisoners, but to bury them. In this episode, we explore 10 disturbing encounters from security contractors, rogue officers, and containment staff assigned to underground detention wings deeper than any record acknowledges. These men and women were told the inmates were unstable. What they found were beings that don't age, don't blink, and only learn when you do. Breathing things that remember voices, that grow mimicry like a muscle, that want our faces. From inexplicable screams below sealed floors to inmates missing mouths but whispering your name, these are not prison stories. These are extinction rehearsal drills hiding behind government metal and hallway light. I knew something was messed up the second I saw how far the elevator went down. It was this unmarked industrial-sized freight elevator with rusted walls tucked behind a supply door in some abandoned warehouse about 20 miles outside of Boise. No GPS signal, no signage, nothing. I'd answered a job listing on a private security forum. Good pay, temporary nighttime shifts only, background check required, NDA included. I figured it was some off-the-books government contract. Money was tight and I had a solid security background. The recruiter barely asked any questions, just looked me up and down once and handed me the key card. Shift starts at 10 p.m. sharp, he said. Don't set talk to anyone. Don't set acknowledge them. Stay in the light. Every instruction you get, follow it, exactly. Then he left me alone at the elevator with a clipboard full of weirdly vague notes and a schedule. There were 6 levels, each one deeper underground than the last. I was only supposed to monitor level 1, for now. When the doors opened on that first night, I gagged instantly. The air hit me like a wall, wet, metallic rot and bleach, like someone had tried to cover up a massacre with cleaning fluid. I stepped off the elevator and felt the temperature sink to what felt like just above freezing, though I swear I saw fog coming out of my mouth and I was fully dressed for winter. Level 1 stretched out in a narrow, dim corridor. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, most of them flickering, and mounted security cameras blinked in every corner. My station was at one end, a glass observation booth with a locking steel door, a console, intercom system, and pages of paper logs. There were 6 cells. I'm using the word cells because I don't know what else to call them, but they weren't built like normal prison cells. No bars, just thick frosted glass, bolted walls, a steel hatch like a submarine door, and no toilet or furniture inside, only drains in the middle, positioned directly above what sounded like a slow, sucking current, like water was moving beneath the floor. I remember thinking, where the hell would someone even build something like this? There was no emergency exit, no stairs up, just that elevator. The shift instructions were simple. Every 3 hours, walk the corridor, check the cells. Do not open them under any circumstances. Do not engage with the occupants. If you hear tapping, whispering, or smell cinnamon or cloves, return to the booth immediately. That last part weirded me out. Cinnamon?
But I'm not proud. I took the job. Every 30 minutes, I had to log behavior from the occupants, by number 1 through 6. The logs were already half filled, going back years. The notes never used names. Just weird, clinical phrases. #3 appeared frozen in place, eyes open, no breathing for 22 mins. #4 attempted mimicry of Officer Langsit's voice. #1 remained facing wall entire shift, no change. #6 received sedation after grinning continuously for 6 hours. That first night the cells were mostly quiet. Nothing moved, except #4. I made the mistake of pausing too long at their glass. The shape inside looked vaguely humanoid, tall, thin, gray-skinned, its limbs slightly too long with joints that looked reversed. It didn't seem to notice me. Until it did. It was facing the corner. Then, without turning, it spoke in a female voice that sounded weirdly familiar. "Ryan, is that you?" My stomach dropped. That was my mom's voice. Tone perfect, calming, just like when I was a kid and had night terrors.
Every hair on my arms rose. I missed you. Please open the door. I set him cold. I backed away fast and went straight into the booth, shut the steel door and just stared out through the glass. The thing never moved, but it watched me, somehow. Its head stayed down, posture unchanged, but I felt it like heat through a window. It knew I was there. Back in the booth, I flipped through past incident reports. Pages and pages going back at least 10 years, maybe 20. One entry said #4 has learned voice from General Manager Sips's deceased daughter. No known contact required. I didn't sleep that day after my shift. I didn't even make it to my car at first. I just sat at the edge of the elevator room shaking. I told myself I'd finish the week. 1 week, 5 nights. The second night something changed in the hallway. The lights were dimmer and I swear they hummed louder. And there was water trickling along the edge of the walls in little rivulets. The smell was worse that night too, sweet and rotted like spoiled meat under sugar. The check-in went mostly smooth until I got to cell #2. That cell was supposed to be empty. The log said vacant, containment breach January 2021, which made 0 sense because the hatch was welded shut. But when I walked by, something exhaled. Not a sigh, not air from the vents. Something wet and long, like a lung dragging in mud. Then the lights flickered hard and I swear, for half a second, I saw a set of eyes in there, ridiculously wide, glowing faint yellow and flat against the glass, like something was spread out on it. Then they vanished. I ran back to the booth and slammed the door. Later that shift, maybe around 3:12 a.m., I started hearing the whispers. Not words, just sounds, breath-like patterns that formed in my ears the same way static sometimes tricks your brain into hearing whispers. Only these always happened when screen #5 glitched. And then came the cinnamon. It drifted in all at once, cloying, warm, and completely out of place. It reminded me of Pillsbury cookies and Christmas mornings. I shut the booth window immediately and hit the emergency lockdown for the corridor. I didn't even care about protocol. When I checked the overhead camera feed from inside the booth, every single occupant was standing at the glass. All 6, even cell #2. They were smiling. Not long after that, I noticed the elevator wasn't coming back up when my shift ended. I tapped the override. Nothing. No power failure. No damage. Just offline. I used the emergency phone, but it rang 34 times. No answer. Then the line went dead. I slept in the booth that day, if you can call passing out from shock sleeping. When I woke up, someone had slipped a note under the booth door. It wasn't set printed. It was handwritten. You may be assigned to level 2 soon. Prepare accordingly. Wear your keycard at all times, even in sleep. Begin sedation acclimation protocol. There was no signatures. I never asked to go deeper. I didn't sign up for anything. I wanted to leave, but when I finally got the elevator functioning again somehow by just pressing the button at exactly 6 p.m., it didn't take me up. It lurched down 2 levels deeper, with no button panel or option to stop. My body was just along for the ride. That night, level 3 looked older, like pre-WI old. Pipes were exposed and leaking, and the walls were covered in what looked like soot or fire damage. They gave me a partner down there, a guy named Yuri, ex-military, Eastern European accent, dead eyes. He didn't speak much, but he kept muttering the same phrase every time we passed cell #9. Don't test point. Don't test point. They learn shape through pointing. I didn't even want to know what that meant. That was the last night I saw Yuri. He vanished before the 4 a.m. check-in. No sound, no alarm. He just walked past cell #11 during routine sweep and didn't reach the other end. The camera feed for cell #11 cut out at the exact second he passed it. When it came back 10 full seconds later, his flashlight was sitting alone in the hallway. Door still locked. No signs of breach. I filed the report. Nobody followed up. I've now been here 18 nights. I've seen things I can't even explain properly. One night they showed me a room labeled reintegration testing. It was full of mannequins and speakers. One of the things from level 4 was being taught how to say the word father, over and over. The voice was almost perfect except the mouth never moved. The sound came from inside its chest. Every shift they moved me further down. I'm now stationed at level 5. The air is acidic. I wear gloves, goggles, and a breathing mask. Some of the things down here are in chambers made of thick resin, like amber. Their bodies aren't recognizable. Bones where teeth should be. Pulsing cracks in their skin like gills or birth canals. I haven't seen daylight in days now. The elevator never opens to the surface anymore.
But the worst part?
Last night I smelled lavender. That was never listed in the rules. And then #26 spoke from behind the glass with my voice, saying I am ready to go back out. I learned, I don't know who's still running this place. I don't know how many levels there are, but when I sleep, I dream in someone else's memories. I think they should teaching me now. They told us the prison had been shut down since '98. Everyone in town said it was sealed off completely. No power, no staff, just concrete and rust. So when our department sent me and another guy out there to check on a break-in report, I figured it'd be a quick in and out. Probably some dumb teens tagging walls or looking for somewhere to get high. But the second we stepped inside, I knew something wasn't right. No animal smells, no dust, no cobwebs. Something about that bothered me more than the darkness. It should have smelled hollow and dead like every other abandoned building I've cleared. Instead, it smelled sterile, like bleach and metal, and beneath that something faint and sour like old sweat dried on hospital sheets. We were supposed to just sweep it, me and Officer Sanders. He was about 10 years older than me, quiet guy, former Marine. Took everything seriously. He kept checking behind us more than in front. By the third hallway he said, "You hear that?" I stopped walking. All I heard was drip, drip, drip from a busted pipe above. "No," I said. But then I heard it too.
Thunk. Scrape.
It sounded like it came from below, somewhere deep in the basement. We shouldn't have gone down, that's the part I keep circling back to. There wasn't just anything in the report about movement underground. No recent floor plans even showed a basement, but Sanders said we needed to clear it just in case. The stairwell was rotted and half collapsed, but there was a heavy steel door at the bottom, stripped paint, hazard signs peeling off. When Sanders yanked it open, a gust of air hit our faces like something exhaled. It was warm, damp. It tasted sour on my tongue. My flashlight flickered before we even passed through. The hallway beyond dipped into a slight slope and it looked like it went on forever. No windows, just long rust-covered pipes above and concrete walls narrowing slightly inward as if the whole place was sinking into the ground. Within seconds of stepping through, our radios lost signal. Static only. It was darker there, not just because of the lack of light. The shadows clung deeper, lingered longer when you moved your flashlight around the corners. I remember my throat feeling tight, like the air was heavier. My flashlight picked up moisture on the walls, some of it black, some of it red. Then we heard it. Screaming. Human. I looked at Sanders. I could barely see his eyes beneath the brim of his cap, but he nodded. Like whatever this was, we were already too deep. We followed the sound deeper and deeper, moving past what looked like old cell blocks, though none of the doors had barred windows. Just sheet metal, with tiny slits and massive bolts on the outside. Every door bore a number stamped in faded red ink, not paint. Numbers like B24 and E15. The screaming was louder near E block, not panicked screams, pleading, like someone was begging not to be hurt. Male voice, young, but it kept getting cut off, like whoever was screaming was bouncing between panic and sedation. It was coming from a door slightly ajar. Light spilled out. It flickered, dull and yellow, like it was powered by a crappy generator. Sanders motioned for me to cover him. He crept in first. I didn't go in for a few more seconds. I had this tightening in my gut. Every part of me wanted to turn back. The air was humming now, this low-frequency vibration you couldn't hear but could feel in your bones. It made my teeth hurt. Inside the room, the walls were lined with old observation windows. Half the mirror glass inside was shattered or darkened, but one side still worked. There were desks, rolling office chairs, and a monitor bank that had clearly been scavenged for parts over the years, but one screen was still on, flickering static. Sanders was staring at it, frozen. I looked over his shoulder. That screen wasn't just static. Something was moving behind it, slow, deliberate shapes just at the edge of visibility. Almost like someone pacing in a narrow hallway, except the geometry felt wrong. Like the person was walking vertically up or down the screen but never going anywhere. The screaming had stopped. Sanders looked at me and finally said, "I know that voice."
What?
He just shook his head. That was my brother. He died in 2003, car crash. I couldn't process it. Probably still don't. Then from deeper inside the facility we heard footsteps, fast, coming toward us. Sanders took point and we backed out of the room into the hallway again. I closed that door behind us. We followed the footsteps down another set of stairs, lower than either of us thought possible based on where we were underground. It felt more like a mine shaft. The walls shifted from concrete to dirt in some areas. My flashlight caught bones embedded in the walls, fused into the packed clay like they'd been there for centuries. I should have turned around, but I didn't want Sanders down there alone. We came to a long corridor with cells on either side, but these weren't cells, they were enclosures, all with vertically aligned, reinforced glass, but no doors at all, just metal grates sealed into the floors. You couldn't open them from inside or outside. It was like they weren't meant to ever be accessed again. Sealed containment tanks. A low thumping echoed through the corridor, rhythmic like slow breathing through the walls. And then everything went still.
No footsteps. No screams. No lights.
Just the sound of water dripping and that humming under the floor. That's when I realized we weren't alone down there. Something was watching us. I turned my flashlight to one of the sealed chambers, and there it was. A face, inches from the other side of the glass. But not human. It could pass for human, maybe, in the wrong light. It had a mouth too far down and eyes too far apart. It was smiling or trying to. Its lips didn't quite understand the motion. The teeth were clean, white, but wrong. Every tooth was a canine, all the same shape. I whispered Sanders back up now. He was fixated, frozen again. That thing behind the glass changed. It looked more like his reflection now. Exact same uniform, exact same gun, but its hands were pressed flat against the glass and they were too wide, like it had more than 5 fingers, like it had absorbed the idea of him but hadn't figured out how to assemble it correctly. It opened its mouth, let out this wet clicking sound. Then from behind me a different voice yelled my name, my real name. I rarely tell anyone. I spun around, nothing. When I turned back, the glass was empty. Sanders was gone.
Just gone.
No sound, no scream. His light was still on the floor, but he was nowhere. I ran through corridor after corridor, upstairs, around collapsed areas filled with rot and dark stains. Some of the doors I passed were shredded open from the inside. The screaming came back. Not one voice now. Dozens, all at once. High, low, childish, guttural. It made no sense. All of them were saying the same sentence.
You left the door open. You left the door open.
I made it back to the stairwell and practically threw myself up each step. The elevator didn't work. I could feel something following me. Not footsteps, movement. Low to the ground, close to the walls. I slammed through the first-floor hallway, out past the broken pipe into the main level, finally daylight again, and I didn't stop until I reached the cruiser. I drove us out of there without Sanders. The radios were back on. Dispatch kept asking what happened. I told them he fell, lost contact, never found him. It's been 5 months, they sealed the place off tighter now. Concrete slabs, motion sensors, even a full perimeter fence. I was put on leave, asked not to talk about it. No investigation. On paper, Sanders is missing in action from a potential collapse site. I still hear the whispers sometimes. In my sleep, I don't dream anymore. At least, I don't think I do. But last week I found something on my front porch. No note, just a flashlight, the kind Sanders carried. Same scratches, same serial number. The battery was dead, but when I turned it once, just checking it out on reflex, it clicked and something inside whispered my name. When I first woke up in the cell, I didn't remember my name. Not just my name. Anything. That's how it starts. You wake up on a damp metal floor with your arms strapped behind you, blood crusted around your hairline, and no clue how you got here. Just the smell of rust, antiseptic, and something sour that seeps from the walls when the vents kick on. The place is underground. I figured that out around day 2. No windows, no sounds from above. The walls are solid concrete, cold to the touch, and everything echoes just slightly wrong, like the shapes of the halls weren't built for human ears. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This is about him. The guy I've been trapped with. My cellmate. They brought him in on what I think was day 4. Up to that point, I'd been alone in cell 118, 10-foot by 10-foot box, floor drain in the middle, camera in the ceiling that moves sometimes even when nobody's come by in hours. The food shows up differently depending who's on shift, sometimes sliding through a panel in the wall, sometimes just appearing on a rusty metal tray near the drain. Always gray, always wet, doesn't taste like anything. When they put him in with me, they didn't say a word. Just opened the door, shoved him down, and locked it again behind him with a clang that shook the walls. He didn't look up, didn't talk, didn't even twitch. He just sat with his knees pulled to his chest, staring forward, blinkless. I spoke to him, asked his name. Nothing. I wasn't sure he was conscious at first, but after a few hours his breathing got deeper. He was awake, aware. He just never blinked. Not once. The first night came and I curled up on my side of the cell, clutching one of the thin blankets they gave out through the slot. He just stayed up the whole night, sat exactly where they dropped him. The next day was the same. The lights flickered on the same broken timer as always, dim yellow fluorescence that buzz low when they're about to shut off. There's no clock here, no sense of how time really passes, except the humming in your head that gets worse the longer you're here.
He didn't eat, didn't sleep, didn't blink.
By day 6, it started messing with my head. I'd check every few minutes. My eyes would dry up from waiting, trying to catch just one flicker, one twitch. He never did it. His stare wasn't focused either, kind of glassy, like he was watching something behind me. Like maybe there was a second shape in the cell only he could see. And by then I started noticing my own thoughts fraying at the edges. Voices mostly. Or not voices, internal thoughts that didn't feel like mine. They'd sneak into my mind like someone whispering in my ear just as I fell asleep.
Your teeth feel soft. It's almost time.
He seps listening through your fingernails. Tear off your ears. They sipter how they track you. I didn't listen, mostly because I was too scared to find out if it was true. I tried getting the guards to take me out for a medical eval or something. I screamed for hours one night, yelled that my cellmate was sick, that he wasn't right, that he might be violent. They didn't come for hours. When they finally opened the door, they only grabbed me, dragged me down a hall with dirty white tiles and no doors. Everything smelled like ammonia and warm dog breath. One guard whispered something to the other as they cuffed me to this green recliner under a surgical light. His exact words were, "No marks this time. She's being watched." I don't want to talk about what happened in that room.
What they did.
But I came back sore, dizzy, my shirt sticking to me with old sweat, couldn't walk straight. And the whole time he was in the cell just staring. That night I finally got close enough to really look at him.
He hadn't spoken. Not once. But his eyes weren't glassy anymore. They were tracking me. Slowly at first, then more fluid, like he'd gotten better at it.
And they were dry, red, veined, skin cracked at the corners from not blinking. His mouth looked normal until he opened it. He let out this horrible wheeze like he'd forgotten how breathing worked. Then he whispered something so quiet I wasn't even sure I heard it at first. He said, "You blink too much." That sits when it hit me. I hadn't seen him blink. Not once in 9 days. I tried calling for someone again, slammed my fists against the door. The camera above us clicked softly and started to swivel toward me.
But nobody came.
The next few days blend together. I stopped eating much, started sleeping less. I'd wake up and find him kneeling right next to me, not moving, just watching me sleep, his pupils locked to mine the moment I opened my eyes. One time I got brave and asked him directly, "What are you?" He just smiled. Lips didn't feeve, teeth perfect, wet. It was like the smile came from inside his head and pushed his face around it, and then he whispered something that chilled me to the bone. "You're the test. I'm the result." I don't know what that means, but the next morning my food was different. No more dripping gray mush. It was dry. Pieces of paper shredded up, soaked just enough to chew. Every strip had words on it, printed like from a medical file. I read parts of names, diagnoses, procedural notes, and dates. Years old, or maybe not yet. Some said things like, "Subject 118 shows signs of conceptual erosion. Cellmate replacement initiated for behavioral study. Total days without instinctive reflex, 9. Cross-infection via gaze, TBD. I didn't eat any more after that. I barely moved, was terrified if I looked him in the eyes too long they'd do something to me, change me. Somewhere around day 12 the lights went off completely. Full black. The hum underground deepened, lower, vibrating through the walls. I swear the oxygen felt different, thicker, like breathing through syrup. I stayed curled in the corner, blinking as often as I could, just to remind myself I still could. He whispered again, closer than ever, "They only keep the ones who forget." That's when I realized I didn't remember my mother's voice anymore, or my last name, or what season it was, or why I was brought here at all. That night I finally begged for help. I broke down and started sobbing, telling the camera I was sorry, that I'd be compliant, whatever they needed, just take him out. The room buzzed. A second camera dropped from the ceiling, new, small, more like an eye than a lens. He looked at it and finally blinked. Once, and when he did, I forgot what my face looked like.
It just left me, like a dream fading right after waking up. I reached up and touched my lips, my eyelids, trying to remember which parts moved when I smiled. Now I get it. He wasn't set broken, or soulless, or brain dead. He was changing, and I think I am too. Today is day 15. They haven't changed the cellmate again. But I noticed something this morning that scared me more than anything else so far. The camera didn't follow him when he moved. It followed me. They gave us the warning on our very first day, never open the far door in the basement, even if you hear voices, especially if it's calling your name. Everyone laughed nervously, thinking it was some kind of hazing thing, part of orientation for the new corrections officers. The warden was a dry, rail-thin guy with hollow cheeks who looked like he hadn't slept in months, and when he said it, there wasn't even a flicker of humor in his face. The rest of the place honestly wasn't so bad. The prison itself was outdated, yeah, underground, damp, low morale, but manageable. Back then, I thought the worst part would be the hours, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shifts. No windows, just buzzing lights and that mildew stink that clung to you for hours after getting home. But that door...
That fucking door. I didn't even notice it at first. It sat by itself, tucked 30 feet past the last row of solitary cells in a cinderblock recess with low clearance and no signage. The hallway down there always felt a little colder than the rest of the facility. The kind of cold that settled in your molars and joints, not just temperature but something else. Heavier. The door was dented, more like a vault than an actual door, matte steel welded around the frame, not like anything in the rest of the unit. It didn't have a doorknob, only a keypad panel ripped out years ago and covered with a bolted plate. Somebody really didn't want anyone going through it. And the weird part, it looked newer than everything else. Like it'd been brought in, added after the prison was built.
Nobody messed with it.
For a while. Then about 3 weeks into my shift rotation, I worked D-block with Ramos, one of the old-timers, real cynical guy with a permanent scowl. If the place floods, we all die coughing up acid, was the first thing he ever said to me. That night we were doing a routine walkthrough around 2 a.m. It was quiet as hell, just low groaning from the pipes and the occasional inmate muttering to himself. Then we passed the furnace hallway and both of us heard it. Footsteps. Coming from the other side of the far door.
Not heavy stomps. Barefoot. Wet.
Slapping the floor. Back and forth. Then a voice. A child's voice. "Help me, please," it whispered, like it was pressed up against the door. "I secum cold. I secum lost. Don't secum leave me down here." My spine locked up. Ramos stopped too, looked at me, not confused, panicked, like he'd heard it before. He grabbed my arm and yanked me out of the hallway like the thing was calling to both of us. Before I could ask what that was, he said, "You didn't hear shit, understand?" It was the first time I saw him shaking. We filed a noise log, the usual protocol. The warden signed off on it with zero follow-up. The report was stamped and deleted not even 2 hours later. Total dead end. We weren't supposed to talk about the basement, so we didn't. Until that door opened. It was a week later during a severe thunderstorm. The prison's power grid is ancient, and when it failed, all main floor systems shut down for 12 minutes, including cameras and cell door locks. The backup generators whirred to life eventually, but the mainframe never reset right. 3 locks had to be manually resecured, and something somewhere shorted down in the basement. No lights, no security feed. We pulled an emergency reassignment, thinking maybe it was just moisture wrecking the system again. I drew basement coverage. Solo. The stairs down were pitch black except for my flashlight's limited beam. Concrete steps, one steel railing, everything echoing like a tunnel. Halfway down, that smell hit me, burnt plastic and copper. You know the smell when something electrical's fried and melting inside a wall. That, but mixed with mushrooms? Sweat? The second I hit the lower level, I heard the breathing. Not from the cells, from the door. Slow, labored, wet breathing, chest level, like someone was standing right up against the metal. It stopped the moment I pointed my flashlight. And then I saw it. The bolts on the door. Those massive rust-streaked clamps that had been sealed since long before I ever got there were loose, hanging at angles. Fresh marks on the concrete walls around them, deep scratches as if someone had pried it open, not from outside, from within. The hair on my neck rose. Part of me wanted to radio it in, but I didn't. I just stood there, rooted, watching the door flex outward slightly, like something behind it was breathing hard and slow toward me. I backed up, made it to the stairwell before I heard the voice again. A woman, Sep's voice this time. Gentle. Sad. "You left me here." I ran. When I told Ramos, all he did was nod once. Then he reached into his duffel and handed me something wrapped in a napkin. It was a paper clip twisted into a spiral and a feather, dried and brittle, old as hell. "Keep it in your pocket," he said. "They don't sit come as close if your skin sits not bare."
What the hell did that even mean?
I tried to quit the next day. Turned in my badge and wrote up everything, the voices, the breathing, the way the air stiffened when I passed that hallway. The warden just smiled and slid my resignation letter into a drawer. "Have a seat," he said. "There's just one thing I need you to do before you go." He wanted me to escort a tech contractor downstairs to reroute a damaged sensor line. Right past the door. It wasn't just unlocked anymore, it was open half an inch. No flashlight showed anything beyond it, just this oily black void that seemed to absorb light. The contractor didn't seem fazed. Young guy, headphones in, didn't even glance at the door. 10 minutes later I heard him scream. Not human screaming, animal sounds. Then dragging.
And then nothing.
We wrote it off as a misstep. He fell into a boiler chute per the official report. But I know what happened. They send people into that door. On purpose. That's what we're doing down here. It's not about rehabilitation, not security, not even warehousing the forgotten. It's a farm. And that thing behind the steel door? It feeds. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it pounds, sometimes even now it pretends to be me. I've heard my own voice echoing behind that door when I do rounds, repeating my schedule, mimicking my walk, mouthing back prayers I mutter under my breath on the late shifts.
Whatever sets down there, it learns.
Last month I stopped seeing Ramos. Heard he requested reassignment, but no one's seen him since. Tonight, while doing rounds, I found a feather at the edge of the basement stairs, just like the one he gave me. But darker. Still warm. The door sips wide open now, and something is watching me from the dark. I knew something was wrong the second I checked the hallway monitor and saw nothing on the feed. Not static, not a black screen, literally nothing, like the corridor stopped existing. 1 second it was there, frozen like always on that cheap screen with flickering light, and the next, gone. Just a flat gray void where cell 43 used to be. No walls, no floor, no door. I clicked through the other feeds on instinct. Everything else was normal. Levels 1 through 3, even the newer wing they just built underground. But level 4, Sector C, just sort of blinked out.
Nobody else noticed it yet.
Graveyard shift at Site 17 was always understaffed. Me, Harris at the West Gate, Shaw monitoring records in HQ. 3 people for a facility that holds things that don't even have names. This isn't set some regular prison. Everyone who works here knows that we don't house men, we hold containments. Class Black, pre-human threats, sentient anomalies. Whole sections of creatures and entities labeled only by numbers and vague threat levels. When something goes wrong in here, there's no lockdown announcement, no alarms, just silence. Anyway, Sector C, Level 4, that's where we kept 43. I'm not even sure I can legally describe it, but I'll say this, it wasn't something we talked to. It didn't have limbs or eyes in a way that makes sense. It didn't respond to sound or light. It wasn't aggressive, but it knew it was being observed. And when they rolled it in during my first week, it made every single neon light in the entire left wing pulse with this low, sick hum I still hear in my sleep sometimes. The main brief on 43 said only 3 things. No direct exposure outside its containment shell. Do not stare at the cell sep's internal door for longer than 4 seconds. Never overwrite the observation schedule manually. That last one got me in trouble once. They caught me trying to delay a visual log, and within minutes 2 men in white showed up outside the booth. Didn't say a word, just handed me a write-up slip with a pen that bled red. That was 6 months ago. I didn't screw up again. I kept my head down. I followed every protocol sheet like it was scripture and never looked at 43 for more than a few seconds. So when I saw its entire sector had disappeared from the feed tonight, my hands went cold. I blinked, checked again. Nothing. Monitor 4, Cell 43, no signal, 0 o'clock. Monitor 5 de 5 at adjacent corridor, camera loop 180 segundo. Monitor 6 blank. I radioed HQ. Shaw answered on the 3rd ping. Her voice came through fuzzy and low like she hadn't spoken in hours. HQ. It's Set's bell, I said. You seeing a feed drop on level 4? Long pause. Nope, all green here. Check cell 43. Another pause. Longer this time. She didn't Set respond. I waited 20 seconds. Then 40. Then her voice came back. Wrong. Don't sit worry about 43, she said. Just visual clutter. Its set's been transferred. Go back to your route. Transferred? Nobody cleared a transfer. I double-checked the logs. Nothing was scheduled. No transport teams logged in or out. That cell was locked down 24/7. I knew the clearance process. 5 signatures, and someone always escorted any movement personally. This was not that. Her voice buzzed back on after a minute. Clear routes? Copy? But it wasn't her voice anymore. I swear to God it sounded like her, but the tone was off, like it was stitched together from recordings. Each syllable cut too sharp. Something was copying her. That was the exact moment the corridor lights 2 floors below me all shut off at once. 10 seconds later, cameras 17 through 21 failed in sequence. And then my radio started breathing. I don't know how else to explain it. This low, congested inhale-exhale, slow and deliberate. Not static fuzz, not accidental channel bleed. Breathing, wet and slow, like someone sick and sedated and watching me through a long tunnel. I shut the radio off and locked the door to the observation booth. The feed for level 4 popped back on. I swear this is true. I saw myself on the screen, not from the hallway view, from inside the booth. The camera that caught the side of my desk, the back of my chair, the coffee mug I left by the screen. Someone was there, sitting where I was sitting.
Same uniform, same hair.
Same twitch in the jaw I developed after 5 years of night shift work. But I wasn't moving, and it wasn't breathing. People use the word uncanny like it's a movie effect. Until you see your own likeness blink in perfect sync with you on a monitor you know is pointed in the wrong direction. I stood up, not even thinking. My boots echoed too loud on the booth floor. On the screen, the copy of me tilted its head 45 degrees and just watched the edge of the frame.
Like something was coming.
Like it was waiting for me to see it. Then it smiled.
Not just a grin, not a creepy smirk. No. It split its mouth open way too wide, far past what a normal jaw should allow, like cracking rotten wood, and once the mouth hit full extension, the rest of its head just kept opening. I yanked the booth door open and ran. I didn't set go for the stairwell. I didn't go to lockdown control. I ran straight to the exit elevator, the main shaft we're never supposed to use unless under full evacuation code. The wire fence cage was still locked. I slammed the override. Nothing. The fail-safe light flashed red. Containment breach in progress. Access denied. I think that was the first time I realized this wasn't a hallucination. Something breached containment. And something else was making sure we stayed inside with it. I turned back. The hallway monitors on the wall flashed black, then resumed playback. Not live, but looped footage. Old passes from hours ago, previous guards, random empty halls. Something was hiding what it was doing. The line between reality and playback blurred. They always warned us of hypotheticals. If a class black ever learned the infrastructure, if it got into the motion sensor logic, if it slipped into the identity chain. But that was just theory. Until now. That thing 43, whatever it was, it didn't escape by accident. It learned. It mimicked Shaw's voice. It took my image. I think it figured out how to shut security systems down without triggering fail-safes. And worse, I think it's letting individual workers think they're okay just long enough. Long enough to isolate them. Like me. I don't know how long I've been typing this in here. The lights in the booth flickered off 20 minutes ago. Power's still out across at least 2 levels. My backup comm just buzzed once. It was Shaw again, or whatever used to be Shaw. Her voice was clearer this time. "Del," she said, "you're not in the booth anymore. Step away from the monitors and see for yourself." But I am in the booth.
Aaron said I. God.
I need to check. But the camera that's still on? I looked just now.
And the version of me on the screen? He's already standing up. When I got the call, I was already 2 hours into my shift and halfway through cold coffee that tasted more like bleach than caffeine. Dispatch came through short and clipped. Possible riot level 6. No comms. You sit closest. Go now. There was no panic in the voice, which made it worse. You don't work in facility K-12 without learning how to read tone, and that tone, flat and calm, meant something bad, real bad, had already happened. Level 6 was what we called a legacy block, built in the late 70s, back when this place was a Cold War black site, then repurposed sometime in the early 2000s under a new federal acronym. I lost track of which agency technically owns us now. It changes on paper every other month. Doesn't matter. All you need to know is this: Level 6 houses the ones we're not supposed to ever move or interact with unless it's a matter of national collapse level importance. We don't call them inmates, just occupants. I've worked at this place for 5 years and I've never seen Level 6 firsthand. Most of the guards think it's a myth, a punishment rumor, something whispered about when someone screws up. You keep mouthing off, they'll stick your ass on 6. Well, they finally stuck me there. I signed in at the access door next to the service core elevator. It was supposed to require dual key authorization, and it did, except the second key was already inserted when I got there. Just dangling. Heart racing, I stepped inside and hit the switch. The panel didn't light up, but the cab started moving anyway. It was the slowest elevator descent I've ever experienced. Long tunnel-like hums vibrated through the walls. The scent changed after the first 4 floors: rust, damp concrete, something like heated rubber, and under that, copper. Like somebody left a hot penny on your tongue and never let you spit it out. When the doors opened, the lights inside flickered once, and then I was in total darkness. For half a second, then emergency lighting kicked on. Dim red strips along the floor and ceiling, casting everything in this eerie hell glow. The air was thick and hot, not humid but dense, like the oxygen was mixed with smoke, and the silence.
It was wrong. Not just quiet off, as in no mechanical hums, no intercoms, nothing. The building had gone dead. I stepped out, boots clicking softly on tacky tile. Every hallway in Level 6 looked the same: tight concrete walls, sliding steel doors on each side, long black glass strips for observation. But the moment I took my first breath, I knew nobody survived whatever happened here. I could feel it, the leftover energy. Panic steeped deep into the walls, like the hallway remembered the fear. The first door was ajar. That was the first red flag. These doors don't open without high clearance commands, and even then only one at a time. The containment systems are designed like airlocks, fail-safes for failure. But this one pried open, bent like something pushed from the inside in. The observation glass was cracked, not broken through, just shattered, like someone had screamed against it. Not figuratively. I mean literally screamed with such force it warped the structure. I peeked inside. The cell was torn apart, metal bunk ripped off the walls, toilet shattered, the mirror embedded halfway into the ceiling. Blood, but oddly little of it. No body, just long dark streaks dragged toward the back wall where the drain had been punched inward, like something crawled out of it. I backed away slowly, kept walking. The next corridor had signs of a massive struggle. Scorch marks down the left wall, melted boots fused into the floor, a torn utility belt with skin still attached to the inner side, melted, not burned. Like whatever caused it came from within the person, not outside. Radio didn't set work, just static. I finally found movement outside cell 6B. A hand, mangled, sticking out from under a half-closed door. I radioed headquarters again, whisper level quiet. HQ, this is Officer Keene at Level 6. I am on scene. There are confirmed casualties. At least 1 dead. Situation is no longer riot, requesting full lockdown. Silence. Then a reply, muffled. No riot. Occupants were terminated at 2:35. Containment failure. You should not be down there. Return. What the hell do you mean terminated? I whispered. I zipped looking at a cell door ripped clean from the frame. Dozens of occupants unaccounted for. The reply cut in. Same voice, but clipped. Robotic. Return. Return, 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 return. Then static again.
I should have turned around right then. Instead, I kept going. I don't know what I was hoping to find. Someone to help. A survivor. Maybe proof that whatever they were hiding here was finally too big to cover up. I kept moving until I hit C-Wing. That's when I saw them. The bodies. All the guards stationed on 6. One slumped against the wall with what looked like their own ID badge shoved down their throat. Another burnt to ash inside their armored suit, like the body was microwaved from the inside. But the worst was the man clutching the emergency release lever. Eyes wide open, skin perfectly intact, but every tooth in his mouth was broken clean in half, like he'd bitten something too hard. There were no other wounds, except his ears. They were missing, just smooth skin where they used to be, like sealed over. That's when I noticed my flashlight flickering. I smacked it gently. It didn't help. And then I heard it. No footsteps, just breathing.
Fast. Wet. Wrong.
It wasn't coming from the hallway, it was coming from multiple cells. I pointed my light through the nearest observation strip. That's when I realized none of the occupants were in their cells, but every single bed was indentated like a body was still sitting there. The room was empty, but the bed had weight. I passed another. Same thing. And another. By the time I hit D block, breathing began behind me too, slow and shuddering like someone was exhaling through layers of soaked fabric. I turned fast. Empty hall. Just long flickering red lights and the slow hum of something waking up. That's when I saw them. One at a time, doors opening, no sound, just sliding open on their own. Cells that should have been sealed with bio locks. Rows. I started running. I passed the hand I saw earlier. Gone now. The elevator was back in sight. Only it was open. And inside? Myself. No uniform, just me. Standing. Still. With a look I didn't recognize. It stared straight at me. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. I blinked and it was gone. The wait for the elevator stretched forever. When it finally closed again, I swear I heard something catch on the outer frame, as if something inside the shaft was moving upward along with me. I didn't stop shaking until I burst out into the ground-level control booth. Shaw was there. Same one from my training shift. Calm voice. "You were never dispatched," she said, taking the notepad from my hand, flipping through pages I don't remember writing. "Level 6 has been sealed for 4 years. I stared at her, covered in soot, blood on my boots, burns on my shirt. No, I choked. There was a riot. I saw the guards. I saw the guards. She didn't let me finish. You weren't authorized to access anything below level 5. That elevator set's been offline since February 2019. That was 7 months ago." She turned and walked away as if that ended the conversation. But before she left, before the metal door sealed shut behind her, she said one last thing. "Whatever followed you up," she paused. "Don't answer it when it knocks. Something knocked on my front door last night. One single knock." Then breathing, and it knew my voice. The first letter came folded inside the sleeve of one of his old jackets. I hadn't worn it in years. It was shoved in the back of my childhood closet, buried beneath forgotten boxes and camp gear. But that day I caught a weird whiff of dust and pine sap when I opened the door, and something compelled me to dig it out. I was reaching for a hoodie when the jacket slid off its hanger and hit the floor hard. Something inside the sleeve. Thick. Paper. It wasn't there the last time I checked, I swear to God. It was a single page, lined, folded into thirds. Crinkled edges, written in my brother's handwriting. Messy, sharp-cornered, how he always wrote when he was anxious. I didn't expect it to be from him because he shouldn't be able to send anything, not from where they put him. They called it detention, containment, specialized psychiatric hold, some underground facility the government doesn't officially acknowledge. After he got arrested 3 years ago, they didn't even put him on trial, just took him, locked him away.
Classified, they said.
Highly dangerous. Mental instability paired with some kind of psychotic delusions. I was naive back then and believed them. But the second I read that letter, everything changed. It said, "They're in the walls, they put me inside them, not in a room, not even a hallway. They took me into the structure, not solitary. Inside the building, I don't know how long I've been here. There's no sleep, time loops. The vents sometimes scream. They opened me, Ellie. They opened me and I didn't die. Something else keeps me going. Tell Mom I didn't kill those people. They made it look that way. The tape was edited. It's not me on it. They took my face and gave it to the other one. Burn this." It didn't end with "Love Marcus" or any name, but I knew it was him. And I didn't set burn it. Instead, I searched the jacket for a return address. There wasn't one. But then 2 days later, I heard something moving behind the walls in my apartment. Scraping, like nails dragging across insulation. So soft if the TV was on, I missed it. But at 3 a.m., lying awake, lights off, I heard it clearly, following the seams of the drywall, from the corner by the window past my nightstand, ending behind my headboard. I pressed my ear to the wall that night and swore I heard breathing. I told myself it was a mouse. Until the second letter showed up, slipped between pages of an old calculus textbook I hadn't touched since college, just there one morning on my kitchen table. I hadn't been reading it. I don't leave it out.
Same handwriting. Same paper.
They thought I couldn't remember my name, but I held on to it. The voice inside the drain tried to eat it, but I whispered it to myself until my tongue bled. The others forgot. The ones they carved hollow, they echo now. They echo through the ducts. One of them used to be my nurse. She spoke in colors before the walls took her mouth. I tried to claw her out. I think she's still alive inside the vent. Or she's what's making the sound. Don't sleep near drywall. That part hit me like a punch. I'd been having those static-filled, half-lucid nightmares the past week, always waking up to that humming in the floor, a vibration that made my teeth ache. I thought it was migraines from stress. Marcus always said they lied, that what they called an episode was actually just him waking up to how things really were. He told me once years ago before they dragged him off, that he thought the world wasn't built for us, that we were living in something else's body, some ancient sleeping creature made of metal and stone, and cities were its nerves. I thought it was nonsense, the kind of thing people gently explain away in hospital visits. But now I wasn't set so sure. I started sleeping in my car.
Didn't tell anyone at first. Wouldn't have believed me anyway.
But I had to know how the letters were getting to me. So I set up cameras. Motion detecting trail cams aimed at every entrance, every window, even the mailbox. Nothing. For 6 nights I stayed in a hotel, refreshed the footage remotely, and still nothing. On the 7th morning I showed up early to check in person, and found a new letter inside my oven. Walls are just skin, Eli. They shift at night. The vents suck in time and breathe out light, and that's how the paper gets out. I feed it into the seams when the guards go stiff. They don't blink after 2 a.m. I don't think they're people anymore. I heard one hum, the noise the alarm makes before a breach. Only there was no breach that night. Just me, asking if I could die. They laughed. Their laugh sounds just like mine. Please tell Mom it wasn't me. Memorize my teeth. You'll know the difference when they find the copy. My hands were shaking. I remember that. I dropped the letter, because maybe the scariest part wasn't how it got there. It was that the handwriting was changing. Still mostly Marcus's, still sharp, but blurrier at the edges, like it was losing its shape. Like someone was trying to copy Marcus's writing and doing a worse job each time. When I went to work that day, I started seeing my brother's face. Not every second, just flashes. A reflection in a subway window leaning too far forward. A figure across the street staring a split second too long. Blurred faces on digital ads glitching just enough to show jawlines I recognized. My therapist said it was trauma or schizophrenic onset. I stopped going after I told him I found a fourth letter sewn inside my pillowcase. That one was shorter, just 3 lines. Keep the lights on. They slip in the dark. They cisper building one of you now. It sis almost finished. That night I unscrewed 2 of my wall panels, pulled them off with a screwdriver while sweaty and manic and barely holding it together. Found nothing first. But the 3rd panel. Behind it was another slip of paper, taped to the insulation. This one wasn't set a letter. It was a photograph. Of me. Sleeping. Taken from inside the wall. My face turned toward the hidden space, my mouth slightly open, eyes moving in REM. Taken at eye level. I moved back in with my mom the next day. Didn't tell her why, couldn't. But then she asked me something that chilled me more than anything else had so far. She said, "Is that Marcus who Sep's been singing outside your window at night?" I asked what she meant. She said she didn't want to be weird about it, but heard humming the last 2 nights between 2 and 4 a.m. familiar songs, childhood ones, old lullabies she used to sing when we were little, so she thought maybe. But Marcus has been gone for 3 years. And now I'm terrified that whatever's writing these letters isn't asking for help. It's warning me about someone or something trying to come back wearing my brother's face. The next morning the drywall in my childhood room warped. Cracks formed, hollow at first. Then something poked through another letter, curled in damp along the edges, pressed up from inside the damn foundation like a splinter pushing through flesh. I haven't opened it yet. It's still sitting on the dresser as I'm writing this. But I can hear someone in the walls again. And this time they sit laughing in my voice. I work underground, literally. 3 stories beneath the Federal Corrections Facility, where they keep what the paperwork calls non-transferable inmates. No faces, no names, just numbers, silence, and a 10-digit clearance system that opens 1 door at a time. I've been at it for 2 years, night shift, deep cells. And for the last 4 nights I've been hearing someone breathe in the dark. It started with a flicker in the hallway light outside cell 12. Could have been electrical. This entire floor is powered separately from the rest of the prison. Still on analog panels and backup diesel. The higher-ups say it's for containment integrity. I think it's because no one wants to dump money into the concrete grave of psychopaths and lost projects. But the flicker wasn't what got me. It was what followed after. A long, dragging exhale. No intake. Just breath, grinding like someone was forcing air through old, wet lungs. The sound came from down the hallway. Past the cells, past where anyone should have been. I stood frozen by the monitoring console, every hair on my arms rising up like static. I radioed it in, but reception cuts out halfway down here sometimes. No reply, no instructions, so I logged it as unverified auditory disturbance and waited it out. Things got stranger the next night. When I keyed in to start my shift, my badge didn't open the last checkpoint. The door just refused. No red error. No green light either. Dead panel. Then, just as I turned to return upstairs and report it, I heard the lock unlatch on its own. No one on the cameras upstairs said they opened it. It just unlocked and I walked in. That kind of thing doesn't happen here. Every door is logged. They say it's more secure than Gitmo. You don't just get up and roam these corridors. Not 3 floors down, where each inmate is sealed in reinforced concrete cells with 4-inch thick triple-bolted doors. No bars, just plated hatches with a vision window which most of them keep closed. That night, though, 3 of the vision windows were open.
Cells 8, 9, and 12, all lined in front of my console. I know for a fact I closed them at the end of my last shift. It's standard, protocol. Yet there they were, slid wide open. Black behind the glass. Blacker than blackout, like the kind of dark your eyes bounce off of. And from 12, the breathing was louder, more deliberate, almost wet. I stared at that cell for what felt like half an hour. I didn't see movement, but I knew something was aware of me. Not hostile, just watching, testing. I didn't report the vision hatches. Let me be real. The guys who've done this shift before me all left early. One lasted 8 weeks. Another only lasted 3 nights. Nobody talks about it. They say things like not the right fit or health issues. I thought they were soft. Prisoners down here don't speak. Don't scream. Most are in some fugue state. Half of them are off book. Rumored to be Cold War carryovers, bioengineered soldiers gone wrong, or sensory test subjects that bled into other black budget programs. Maybe not even prisoners anymore, just leftovers.
Last night broke whatever wall I had up. The shift started normal. Cameras dead in sectors 1 through 3, but they glitch often due to pressure fluctuations. I did my rounds, everything was still enough that the silence started to press into my chest like weight. You ever feel silence vibrate in a room, like it's got a sound of its own? That's what it was like. Walking past sealed tombs, that breathing started again, but closer than cell 12. It was coming from cell 6. The hatch was open. Now cell 6 is empty, has been for months. The door's supposed to be magnetically sealed with 2 levels of lock, but the hatch, that heavy plating, it was cracked open just enough, maybe an inch, and there was breath pouring through it. Long, slow, almost sympathetic. I swear to God it sounded human, emotional, like it was learning me. I backed away, clicked the hatch shut, but as I did, I swear from the slit in the metal something moved in the corner, a shift, like a figure pulling back into the depth of black. I locked the panel manually and ran a diagnostic, but no logs showed anyone accessing cell systems. According to everything, that door hadn't opened in 92 days. But I know what I saw, and I know what I heard. I told supervision in the morning, they dismissed it, told me to catch up on rest and not overthink dimensional echo. They use that phrase, dimensional echo, to explain anything weird down here. Sometimes guards hear footsteps through the walls, sometimes whispering, but I've never felt like it was a resonance or echo. This thing feels responsive. Tonight when I scanned in, someone had already signed into my shift, logged under my ID, time stamped exactly 30 minutes before I arrived, but I had my ID on me all day. No one could have cloned it. It's a biometric implant. You'd need to remove it. They changed nothing. The console didn't even see it as an error. And now I'm down here again, all night, just me and whatever's in those cells. Cell 12 SEP's breathing is, but cell 6's hatch is wide open. I didn't open it, it was shut during my rounds. I'm looking at it right now, the hallway is empty, but the air, it smells wrong, like old metal and rot, like blood that dried and got wet again. There's something chemical in it too, like iodine or ozone, and cold, way colder than it should be, even in here. My breath's fogging and I'm sweating. That doesn't make sense. I just heard a footstep behind me. I turned, nothing there. But the monolith doors to cells 5 and 7 are both slowly vibrating. Just a hum, like pressure's building. No open hatches, just humming. There's a low tone in the walls now. I can feel it in my teeth. I tried calling upstairs, radio's full static. Not white noise though, like breathing again, but processed. The sup not alone down here. I think someone's walking just out of reach of the cameras. Every time I check one, I catch the edge of a shadow moving just before the feed cuts out. I reload and there's nothing. But then another cell's hatch pops slightly ajar in a different corridor, one after the other, not random, like it's moving through them, like something is checking which one of them it woke up. Wait. All the hatches are opening, 2 at a time now. Cell 3's hatch should be sealed with a concrete fill that inmate coded out last year, died during a restraint event. No one ever cleared the cell, but the hatch is opening. And I saw fingers grip the inner edge, pale, long, bones tight under thin skin, not moving like human limbs. Movements were too calculated, too slow, like they weren't made to be fast. I'm watching cell 3 just went dark. Console reads no data. I'm backing away towards the elevator now, but the call button needs 2-level admin to work after hours and my override just chirped denied. Why? Why did it chirp twice? That only happens when 2 users request access. No, I didn't hit it twice. It sets here. The hum is in the floor now. Everything's vibrating. My chair just rolled 2 feet on its own toward the far hall. Lights above cell 6 blew out. The cameras are now looping footage from last night. I'm watching myself do rounds from yesterday. On every screen, real-time feed is gone. And now it sets whispering. I swear on my life something is whispering in the vents above me, but it's my voice. It sets saying "You've always been here," over and over. The hatch behind me just clicked open. I didn't touch it. I'm not turning around.
Not turning around.
Transmission ended. Last signal record 2 hours 48 minutes and 17 seconds. The first wrong thing was the smell. Before we saw anything, before we even cracked the rusted gates open, you could smell it, like rotten metal and something long dead under damp earth. It came rushing out the second the mini excavator ground through the layer of concrete we'd poured decades ago to seal the hatch. We all just looked at each other, waiting for someone else to say it, to admit it was off. But this is government contracting, money talks, and men with deadlines don't have time for gut instincts. Old sewer gas, they said. Chemical decay. Except sewers don't make the back of your teeth ache. They don't make your ears pop. The prison wasn't on any official map. That's what got us all curious. Some contractor up top won a federal bid to expand the industrial park on the south end, and somehow this slab showed up on a core scan. Buried deep, not just covered, hidden. Steel plates, radiation shielding, rebar 16 inches thick. It was built to stay down. No blueprints, no transfer papers, no records of what it actually was. Just a 3-word stamp on the rusted paneling they dug up. Federal Detention Site. We joked about it at first. Cold War black site stuff. CIA rendition. MK Ultra gone bad. Guantanamo's great-grandfather. But then the main shaft was finally exposed, and we stopped laughing. Picture this. A 6-foot-wide stairwell drilled straight into the earth. 34 steps going down forever. Each one made of oxidized rebar and crumbling concrete, damp with condensation that shouldn't have been down there. No elevator left, no power, just stale wind pushing up the shaft, like whatever was buried had lungs and the air was its last breath rising back up. Most of the crew wouldn't even stand near the opening. I saw it in their faces. They kept finding excuses, stayed back behind the safety tape. I was the only one who went close, who looked directly into it. Maybe I was trying to prove something. Been in site clearing for over 20 years. I've handled sinkhole collapses, black mold, forgotten mines. But this felt different from the moment I put my boots on the first step. The first trip down was uneventful, at least on the surface. Just mold, dust, and spores growing like cotton along the steel railing. I tagged the weak spots in the support beams and came back up. My heart was pounding the whole time though. Not like fear, more like pressure. Like my body knew something that my brain wouldn't accept yet. We filed the structural report. Tagged it for secure access. That night back at the motel, I didn't sleep. I tried, I really did. But around 3:15 a.m. I started hearing knocking.
Not outside. Not from another room.
Inside my room. Inside the little closet across from the sink. Soft, even, measured. I sat up and watched the handle. It didn't move. I opened it, just towels and a busted ironing board. I forced a laugh, figured maybe a pipe knocking around, tried to sleep again. The knocking returned at exactly 3:17, not random this time. 4 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. I remember writing it down, recording it on my phone. The waveform came back flat. Just silence. The next morning we were told to go deeper. More footage. The client wanted architectural documentation and full site verification. I brought 2 guys with me, Paul and Richie. Good guys. ex-Navy, not afraid of tight spaces or creepy basements. We brought portable lighting, strung them through the corridor manually. No ambient light was coming from anywhere. It was dark in a way I've never experienced, like light didn't bounce at all, just got eaten. The halls were industrial green, that post-war asylum green. Everything smelled like chemical mildew and wet metal. The ceilings were low, too low, like they weren't made for regular humans. Just enough space to crowd your thoughts. There were no windows, just row after row of sealed doors. Each cell solid steel, no hinges on the outside, welded vision slats about head height, but all were shut, not a single way to peek inside. We hit blast doors every few dozen feet, massive slabs of hardened alloy, some of them forced open just enough for us to slide through. One was still solidly locked, even after 40 years underground. No corrosion, like it was preserved. The path curved. I'm not talking about corners. I mean curved, like the corridors were a spiral. No visual logic to the layout. You'd think you were heading north, and 10 minutes later you'd see your boot prints crossing themselves. Room 48A was where it changed. We found a security room, real old-school thick glass, data reels, smashed consoles coated in dust. One VHS reel was completely intact, sealed in a lockbox under the terminal. Paul split the casing to preview it. His face went pale. No joke. Guy's done recon missions in Somalia. He said there's something moving in the dark. We leaned in. What do you mean moving in the dark? He said, it sits, not coming towards the camera. It sits moving around the light, like it knows. I said we were pulling out after that. We had enough footage, enough recon, but just before we turned to leave, Richie whispered.
Do you hear that?
At first, nothing. Then, too quiet, like the silence had weight, but underneath it very faint. Rhythmic tapping. Not natural, not water or metal settling. Deliberate, like a nail lightly dragging across the steel wall. We turned off the lights. Biggest mistake of the whole job. Because the second we did, it got loud. Feet, running. Not one pair, dozens of bare feet hitting metal. Not toward us, around us, circling. Richie screamed. Not a manly yelp, a kid's scream that made my stomach roll worse than the sound. We bolted, gear abandoned, lights swinging wild. Every echo felt delayed, like something was repeating them right behind us a split second later. Paul tripped, dropped his flashlight. The stairwell was maybe 70 feet away. As I turned to help him, I caught a flicker on the wall. Not a shadow, not an animal. A shape, long-fingered, pale, muscles stretched too tight across a jagged frame. It curled back into the seam of the ceiling like it had never been there. We got to the surface. No Richie. We waited, screamed for him. Nothing came back up but wind. They blamed it on disorientation, fatigue, gas leaks. That's how they wrote it up after 4 days of searching. They didn't even notify his family the way they were supposed to. Then the orders came down.
Seal the shaft. Bury it again.
Immediately. No investigation, no second opinions. They paid us double to pour over 3 feet of quickset concrete. Job complete. Case closed. End of story.
Or at least I thought.
Until the package. It came a week later. No label. No note. Just a VHS tape, soaked and wrapped in wet cloth. It smelled like the tunnel. I couldn't not watch it. Had to find a thrift store tape player first. Clean it out. Oils from my palms stained the counter. I don't even know why I was nervous. I knew what I was going to see.
But not this.
The tape clicked on. Flickering black and white. Richie. Standing in that hallway. Half naked, face hollow, eyes blank but not blind. He looked directly into the camera like he knew I'd be on the other side. Then he turned, and he started knocking on one of the cell doors. 4 knocks.
Pause. 3 knocks.
Over and over. on metal that somehow sounded wet. The tape ends. But now the knocking happens in my house. At night, sometimes from the closet, sometimes from the inside of the bathroom wall. Always that same pattern. Yesterday the ceiling light in my basement shattered again. Third time this week. All brand new bulbs. No sign of power surge. But one bulb, only one, had been replaced. Still warm. That sip's not what terrifies me. What terrifies me is the new crack in the basement floor. Dust around it. And that today, when I pressed my ear to the floor, I didn't hear silence. I heard just breathing. And then
4 knocks. Pause.
3 knocks. I told my wife to take the kids and leave. She didn't argue. She saw the look in my eyes. But I kept staying because I think Richie wasn't taken. I think he was changed. Used. Made into something else. Like a doorway. And now that door is open again. Something sets coming up. Coming through. And I think it remembers me. I arrived at the facility just after 3 a.m. military convoy, blacked out windows, armed escorts that didn't speak. I don't know where we came from, 4 hours in the back of a pitch-black van with no GPS or cell signal. The air got colder the deeper we drove, like we were slipping under the skin of the earth. When we reached the site, it was raining, thick, muddy ground, no moon. The entrance looked like it didn't belong to anything, just a concrete square set in a wall of rock, barely visible unless you knew it was there. No signs, no flags, just a reinforced door and a retinal scanner. They didn't say welcome, didn't explain why I was here or what my role would be. Just a folder, blank on the outside, and a uniform with no patch, no rank, not even a name tag. Inside the folder, 5 pages of instructions. All caps, bold type, redactions. Do not question inmates. No eye contact through view windows. Do not refer to inmates as persons. At first I thought this was psychological protocol for high-risk detainees. Maybe Black Detention Site 09 was one of those off-the-record CIA holding facilities they whisper about in training, built for terrorism suspects, war criminals, or whoever disappeared off the manifest when politics got messy. But it wasn't that. This place, whatever it is, isn't holding enemy combatants. It's holding something else. I realized it on my 3rd day. The first 2 days were orientation, if you want to call it that. They walked me through the upper levels. Admin, supply, medical, all sterile, all windowless, all staffed by people who didn't look you in the eye. It wasn't until I was cleared for sub-level 4 that things went sideways. Level 4 set's nickname is the gallery. It's the only place where the cells have windows. 6-inch view slits bolted in the center of each door. You're not supposed to look. That's what every regulation screamed. But everyone does. You pass a dark window, you want to see what's inside. So I looked. It was cell 4B. Just a glance. Less than a second. There was something standing just 10 feet from the slit. Naked, pale, head turned vaguely in my direction, but where its face should have been. There was nothing. No eyes, no nose, no mouth, no features at all. Just skin stretched across a smooth oval skull, like someone covered a mannequin head in plastic wrap and pulled it tight, like God skipped a step. I backed away before it could move. But the minute I turned the corner, I heard something. A voice. Whispering in my ear, in my own voice.
You shouldn't have looked.
I spun around, empty hallway. That was the first time I felt truly afraid, not of the inmates inside the cells, but of the building itself. The feeling it gave me, like the walls were listening, like the floor wanted to sink you in. I didn't seek sleep that night, or the next. Here's the thing I haven't told anyone, not even during debriefs. I think those things inside the cells, they're not prisoners. They're something mimicking people. We maintain them like any cell block. Feedings through the hatch. Weekly health checks. Minimal interaction. They never spoke. Never showed aggression. Never made noise. But every so often when I approached a door to slide in a tray, I'd feel it. Heat coming off the metal like it had a pulse, or movement right before I got there. One time there were scratches on the outside of the cell door, deep, wide apart, like claws. Medical said it could have been a welding defect. Except the security feed from the previous night showed something standing at its door, not inside but behind it, on the hallway side, in the camera's blind spot, just waiting. No one could explain that. The next day, a staff member didn't show up for morning check-in. His last keycard ping was outside cell 6A, no footage, no body, his bunk untouched. They put out a bulletin for health reasons. Exposure, family-related illness. That was the official email. But we all knew what it meant. Cell 6A's door was welded shut the next morning. Unscheduled. Later that week the alarm sounded in Section D, supposed containment breach, but when we checked all cells were locked, no signs of interference, except in one of the empty units, a holding cell we hadn't used in over a year, we found a face. Not a body, just a face. Perfectly sliced off, flat, like a theater mask, no blood, no back layer, like it had been printed. It looked like the staff member who went missing. That's when I started looking closer at the inmates. There were 23 cells on that level, but sometimes I'd count 24 shadows under doors. Sometimes more, sometimes none. Once on grave shift I was doing my rounds and found all the vision slits open, every single one. It was silent as death. No light inside the cells, just open black rectangles lining both sides of the hallway like a tunnel into nowhere. You know those dreams where you know something is right behind you, breathing down your neck, but if you turn your head it'll be the last thing you do. It was like that. I shut every slit manually, hands shaking, no backup, just me and whatever was watching from inside. We wear body cams now. They say it's for documentation. I think it's so they know what the last thing we saw was. I've been down here 9 weeks. I stopped counting days after I saw one of the inmates move in a way the human body isn't supposed to move, like its spine dislocated so it could twist backwards and watch me walk away even though it had no eyes. There's stats, no clocks in the underground levels. Time moves differently. Sleep is light, dreams are worse. I had one where I was trapped in a white room, no doors, just 23 faceless people standing around me in a circle, perfectly still. Then one of them stepped forward holding my face in its hands.
And put it on.
The next morning my nose bled for an hour straight. I reported it. They said stress. Offered pills. A week later I saw Paul, one of the newer guards, at the mess hall. He waved. But something was wrong. It took me a second to see it. His uniform ID tag had someone else's name, one of the guards who hadn't shown up to his shift in over a week. I asked him directly.
He just smiled.
Except it wasn't a smile. His mouth moved, but the shape didn't match the expression. Like his face wasn't made for that motion. Like it was someone else inside trying to guess how to use it. I left the room. I went to personnel, requested a full audit of staff rosters.
They denied it.
Said I was overthinking. Stress surveillance. That same night I found bloody fingerprints on my pillow. But they weren't at mine. I wear gloves. Here steps the worst part. 2 nights ago I woke up in my bunk gasping. Because someone was standing over me. Not near me. Over me. One hand against the top bunk. The other on the railing. Their head directly above my face. Leaning down like they were reading me. No light. Just shape. Just presence. I tried to turn on my flashlight.
Dead.
When I finally lunged out of bed, nothing was there. But the sheet I was under was still warm where they'd been touching it. I can set leave. There's sets no exit paperwork. Once your transfer's approved, your identity is stripped. Your name, your records, even your original base sit wiped. And now I don't know what I said I'm guarding anymore. Oh, who I am. Last night I caught a reflection in the glass pane of cell 1C. But it wasn't mine. It wore my uniform, had my build. But the face was my own. Only it blinked after I did. Like it wasn't copying me fast enough. Like it was still learning. I filed a final log this morning, and I'm hiding it in the maintenance duct where janitorial won't look.
If you're reading this,
Stay above ground. Domest and take the transfer. Dom set look in the cells.
and whatever you do, don't let them learn your face.